Today's guest is George Sanders, head of growth at Fox Agency. George's approach to B2B is all about making it feel a lot more human and less like selling, more like real conversations. And I'm really excited to get into how he thinks about all of this. George, welcome to Fully Managed.
Hi, Isabel. Thank you very much for having me. What a delightful treat.
Absolutely. We're very excited to have you here. So you have built like your whole approach around making sales feel less like selling, you know? But if someone sat in your conversations, I'm curious what would feel like noticeably different.
Well, I think really what I've built it around is my horrible personality. I think it took me a very long time to work out what a good sales approach would look like. And I think, everybody's experience with sales is mostly snake oil and shit hills. And there's a lot of people out there giving it a bad name, but it doesn't have to be. And I think once I realized that, so I used to had the piss taken out of me by my previous bosses because they would say I had a persona called Business George, and Business George was taking himself too seriously, and he'd come into meetings and he'd try and own the room, and you could see it as very performative. And I did the job for long enough to realize that actually people don't want that. They want authenticity. They want somebody that they can trust. So a lot of what I've built my sales approach around is actually, and I know this sounds lame, being myself, because that's what's really cool. Because when you are honest, it comes through and it makes those difficult conversations much, much easier. Because, if you go for an approach that is about helping people instead of selling to them, sometimes helping people means saying something difficult or hard. But when it comes from a place of honesty and a place of authenticity, that's a lot easier. And people value that. The number of times I've said to people, I'm sorry, we're not the right agency for you now for these reasons. It tends to come back in 6 months, a year, 2 years. And they say, I really appreciate that. That was good from you. I think we're in a better place now. How about we chat? And I've said this elsewhere before, and it's really clickbaity, but always assume that your audiences are stupid, lazy, and selfish. Assume they're stupid and make it obvious and easy for them. Assume they're lazy and take all of the work out of it for them. And assume they're selfish by making it all about them and their needs. If you go into every sales conversation thinking that, everyone just finds it frictionless and fluid and fun and easy. So that's how you then kind of build an approach that is all about the people you're speaking to and just bringing your best self to them. Does that sound corny?
No,
Sounds corny from an English
absolutely.
person, doesn't it? American, I think
that was so cool. Like I was like, oh, I love that. And I think I don't think that's cliche at all. I think that in this, day and age where there are so many like unauthentic and ungenuine people, like that's so valuable and it goes such a long way,
Great. Well, look, you only have to go on LinkedIn and see a bunch of guys with greasy hair and shiny suits, kind of, usually with AI in their job title, giving it the big I am and kind of giving all of this clearly AI driven nonsense. And I think that those people who are, I don't want to say daring to be themselves, but just realizing that it's easier, it's more fun, it's more authentic. I think those in this day and age coming through even more clearly, and people are kind of getting that there are people out there trying to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I told you, I was just stalking you on LinkedIn and you are so genuine, like it's so refreshing, in this really polished world to see something so authentic and fun, so that's really bold, I think, and brave to be ourselves in this world.
Brave is a very generous term for somebody who's just writing shit jokes and puns on LinkedIn when you're thinking about kind of soldiers and firefighters and stuff. But yeah, I'll take that. That's very flattering.
Definitely bold. And, there's a lot of talk about being customer centric, but in reality, like where do you see most B2B teams still making it about themselves without realizing it?
It's really, really hard being a B2B marketer. And I don't think B2C marketers always appreciate that. B2B marketers exist in more pressured, less understanding environments. So B2B marketers are usually in organizations that are dominated by sales, where marketing is usually in some weird capacity kind of is subordinate to sales. You've usually got a CEO who came from a sales background. You've got a CFO that doesn't get the value of marketing offers. So you've got a B2B marketer who is trying to do a difficult job under enormous pressure with very little support, no understanding, but has all the scrutiny on what B2B marketing is supposed to be delivering from a return. And that's really difficult. So you've got somebody who's trying to show what the value of B2B marketing is, but isn't given the time or space to be able to do it. So what happens is you tend to then start seeing people in any situation, whether that's marketing or not, in pressure, reverting to, let's just stick with what we've got, kind of going just through inertia, let's just go with last year's plans. Let's not try and rock the boat. So when we think about the way we should be doing it, so when you look at marketing and you think about having a look at the market, so three circles, if you will, having a look at the market, having a look at audiences, having a look at yourself. I think there's a lot of anxiety and stress and difficulty that stops marketers from effectively looking at the market and, more importantly, the audiences. So everybody ends up just looking inwards, navel gazing, looking at what we do, our feeds and speeds, products and benefits, and what the stakeholders think, instead of going, where are we looking in terms of the market? Where is the industry going? Who are the main players? Where is that white space? Where should we be? Where are we now and where should we be going? And then with audiences, what do they actually care about? Who are we to them? Do they ever think about us? Do they know about us? You've got a lot of stakeholders demanding leads, but nobody knows who we are. There's a gulf there that needs to be explored. So I think B2B marketers, and it isn't their fault, are getting locked in that navel gazing piece of not having the space or the security or the support to be getting the room to be able to do the piece that they need to do.
That makes a lot of sense when you put it that way. And what's something B2B brands assume their audience cares about, but usually it doesn't land,
Oh my God, I have spoken to enough B2B marketing leaders who their salespeople over-index how much anyone thinks about their brand. And the problem is it's like being too close to a house. Your nose is touching the wall. You can't actually see what's going on, but you're just focused on the stuff that you know. And I really think it's important that marketers should know their customers better than anyone else in the business. They should understand who their customers are, what they care about, where else they might be going, what that market kind of context and layout is, the competitor landscape. That's the information that they should be bringing to the rest of the company when their company get very focused in, the minutiae and kind of what they care about instead of what we should be caring about.
That's sharp. And there's this tension in B2B between being safe and being distinct. So why do you think so many brands still choose safe?
I could talk about this point all day. I mean, it really grinds my gears. It shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be. I mean, so much B2B is a zoomed out view of the world with orange lights flashing around it, and it's old, crusty white guys in suits shaking hands or crowding around laptops and post-it notes, just thin, vacuous stock photography. And I think the problem is you've got a lot of these B2B businesses think of themselves as talking to businesses instead of talking to people. No business makes a decision. It's a bunch of weird, anxious, difficult, excitable, real people who get together and try and make the best decision they can without getting fired. And they just want some recognition for it, which makes it complicated. But what these companies are then doing are trying to market towards businesses instead of people. So they kind of go, well, we need to look like the business product. I remember I chatted to a marketer years ago who worked in the shipping industry. And she was like, I'm just so fucking sick of seeing shipping containers in the materials that I see. I know what my industry looks like. I don't need to see that. Use that space to teach me something. Use it, to make my life easier or better. So I think that a lot of companies get too reliant on those easy marketing mechanics that feel like they're relevant, but they're not. So it's difficult in B2B when there are prevailing attitudes and themes where people actually know that there is a case for doing things differently. Marketers usually get that. I do have a lot of confidence in most marketers do understand that you have to stand out, you have to do things differently. But again, it's the stakeholders who then struggle with it. They don't get it. They don't understand the need for it. It's very hard to make things happen when you have a committee of people who are driving towards what safe is, So that's where, looking at the market, speaking to the audiences. That's the ammunition you need to have in order to have those conversations.
And when work ends up feeling like brand camouflage, do you think is that usually a creative problem or something that went wrong earlier on?
Oh, that's a good question. It is a creative problem. It is first a strategic problem. So too few businesses get what strategy actually is, which is about making a difficult decision. A lot of B2B marketers struggle because the CEO will be like, I want us to look like this brand. And it's something that they've seen at the airport or in the back of a magazine or some kind of golf club somewhere. And it just becomes a kind of, how do we just keep up? Instead of making a strategic decision to go, where should we be and where do we want to go and how do we get there? The reason why there's so much brand camouflage is because everybody is just trying to keep up with each other. Usually a company, about 10, 15 years ago, Google did this. They came up with this new design. Every single other software company ends up looking the same. And there's cigarette paper between them. And it's very easy, it's a very easy way for a brand to feel better about themselves, to make them feel like they're enough. But then from the audience perspective, it is just the same. There is no difference there at all. It is rare for a B2B brand to genuinely have the minerals to actually stand out and do something different, because people think that people care more than they actually do. If you saw a brand that looked weird or different, it might get 1% of your attention. It would be nice. You go, oh, that's cool. No one actually cares. But I think there's a real fear that this stuff has these kind of material consequences. The biggest risk, the biggest danger is not being seen as a little bit weird or different or quirky. The biggest danger is being ignored, in not being remembered, in not landing the message. And that's where, this beige alert, this, brand camouflage, this just making everything just thin and insipid is coming at a real cost for these businesses.
Yeah, that's a refreshing way to look at it. And like moving on to the infamous AI.
I've heard about AI. Yeah,
You've heard of
I've seen that on the news.
it?
Yeah,
This
isn't
little
it?
thing. I saw that you've made the point that once the tools get democratized, the edge has to come from somewhere else. So now that AI is in everyone's hands, where do you think that edge is showing up?
Yeah, you just referred to a line that I did write the other day, and it was a really, really clever one, and I can't actually remember the wording, but it was good, wasn't it? The problem with AI is now that everyone can use it and everyone has access to it, it is the great averager. And I think everyone knows this already, but what you've got are very different levels of adoption, and very different levels of enthusiasm and appetite within businesses. So we've got clients who are being made to use it against their will. We have clients who are not allowed to use it at all. But what it's doing is making all the people who can use it, shortcutting the dumb jobs, finding inspiration through easier access to cool things that they can find, better education around kind of interesting new methods and tools and processes, which is great. But I've got quite a cynical view on AI because I think people are outsourcing themselves. They're outsourcing their jobs to it. Any good marketer should always be protecting the strategy part of their job, understanding what we should be doing, what it means, making difficult decisions, saying no to stuff. What AI does is gives you the best average. It gets you to fine incredibly quickly, and it feels great. It's really seductive. You go, oh, can I do a positioning with AI? You really can. You honestly can. And it'll be shit. It will not. I mean, potentially, you could probably sit with it for a very long time and really fight against it and rail it. But it doesn't understand your organization. It doesn't understand the people within there. It doesn't understand the market. It doesn't have the knowledge that you have, and it isn't able to make those decisions the way that you can. And I do worry that there are people out there, not necessarily marketers, could be anyone, who are starting to lean on that a little bit too heavily. I use AI a lot. I use it for boring admin jobs because I've got terrible handwriting and I'm quite lazy. But I like the difficult, chewy B2B strategic stuff that it shouldn't be helping with. So I do think that we are going to see the quality of marketing generally erode, but there will be individuals within it who sense the opportunity. The really good marketers will see the map of people, what they're doing, what the white space is, and realize, you know what, if everybody's doing average and everyone's doing a bit lazy and a bit shit, let's go high touch, let's go original, let's go different and distinctive. And they won't be doing, stuff that's predictable. It'll be stuff that's really memorable. There's a Canadian band that everyone's seeing all over Instagram at the moment called, I think it's Angine de Poutrine, I think it is. And they are polka dot figures in these giant papier-mâché costumes playing almost unlistenable rock music with only two instruments. And it's mad and it's interesting. And it is the opposite of AI, where Spotify is now being filled with kind of AI slop that's fantastic and it's really good. But when you listen to music, you want to know that it's come from a truth. It's come from some kind of, soul. This band, I can't listen to the music, but it's fascinating and I can't stop listening to it. It's bizarre, and that is, I think, where Martin's going to start going. You're going to start seeing, where we had the madness of the 90s with some of the advertising that you saw then. Definitely not allowed now, but you're going to see versions of that. Dangerous, weird, witty. It's going to be, hopefully, a bit of a watershed moment, and you're going to see the stars rise out of the sewage.
Wait, why isn't it allowed now, the marketing from the 90s?
There's a lot. We had in the UK, Tango. Do you have Tango out there? Like Tango orange drink? It's like Fanta.
Okay.
Okay, it's basically Fanta, but it's called Tango. And they had a series of ads that were just anarchic and mad. And one of them involved a guy with a giant rubber orange hand going around slapping people in the street. And it was great and it's silly. And there was then copycat incidences across schools in the country of kids running up to other kids, slapping them in the face and shouting, "You've been tangoed." Now that's fantastic in terms of building brand awareness and familiarity. It came at enormous cost of kids' tender cheeks. So what they did then was a bit of a flip, and they cut that advert, they removed it, and replaced it with one where a guy, I think he was an enormous orange baby. He was like this big fat bald guy, and he ran up to someone and kissed them on the street, which is sweeter than a slap, but obviously in today's kind of a comes with its own set of complications as well. So for anyone who hasn't looked at the 90s ads, just generally, just look at weirdest 90s ads on YouTube, and it is a look up Kevin the Hamster by Levi's. I'll leave it there, but just look up Kevin the Hamster by Levi's. It's my all-time favorite.
I'm so excited. And I also want to check out the band that you mentioned, the Canadian band.
Angine de Poutrine, I think it is. They're from Quebec, I believe. Yeah.
But yeah, this reminded me all that you talked about AI, about this phrase that a past guest, Dinesh Dave, said, that AI is the sous chef, but you are the chef,
That's nice. That's a good way of doing it. I mean, it is, there's a lot of people worried about it, and there are definitely problems with it. I see it as similar to the internet or Microsoft Office suite. It is a tool, and it is good to get good at using them, because I don't think they're going anywhere. Everyone's already talking about this. You want to be the person who knows how to use them. You don't want to try and avoid them. You don't want to rely on them. You want to be the person that says, this is what we need to use it for, and definitely do not use it for. I mean, I had a worrying conversation with a CMO a few weeks ago who was asking why they can't use AI for the whole brand, rebrand kind of research and insight piece. And the truth is, because it's not going to find the stuff that you need that's going to inform what your business really needs to do. It's not going to have those real customer conversations. It's not going to understand the stakeholders. It's not going to understand really those competitor kind of environments better than you will. So I do worry that there is a little bit of a kind of a lack of common sense in what it really should be used for, but I think it's a teething period, and hopefully we'll get through it quickly.
Absolutely. And going back to, the B2B world, what's something people think builds trust in B2B, but usually has the opposite effect, in your opinion?
I know what builds trust but has the opposite effect. I think where you see a real problem is assuming that your product or service is more interesting than it is. We will baffle our audiences in feeds and speeds, features and benefits, thinking that this is what audiences want to see. The truth is, half the time, they don't care about that stuff. They are an intern doing a little bit of research on their own. They're just trying to get to it, and they're already being battered by, bottom of the funnel information. I think there's a tendency towards narcissism when it comes to, people being too interested in what they're already close to, rather than starting to, lead with what their audiences genuinely care about. Who is giving them shit? What is on their plate in terms of their stresses and anxieties? Always think about our audiences. What are their ambitions, appetites, and anxieties? Start there, start talking about that stuff. Bring them in early and bring them in on that. I think that, like building trust through saying that we've got, we can print, 500 sheets per minute or something. That's not what's going to build trust. It's going to be that these people get my world, my pressures, and what I'm trying to achieve.
Oh, yeah. That feels very grounded. And you've had like a lot of conversations across your career. Have you noticed a pattern in the ones that go nowhere?
Yeah. A lack of honesty. If I think about those conversations, whether that's, pitches or even, colleagues, I'm a big believer in going into a situation and being honest, even when it's tough, and especially when it's tough. We are dealing with and this is the industry in general, a growing number of ghosted opportunities. And I think it's because you get somebody looking for a service who isn't honest about the fact that they're just wanting to get numbers, or they're just doing a procurement exercise, and they kind of go through the whole rigmarole of the process. They're not saying, look, to be honest, just give me some numbers. And I'll be like, yeah, great. I can literally do that in 10 minutes and be on your way. And if you want to chat later, great. Instead, you get these protracted processes. And I know that our clients are going through the same thing. I've spoken to some of their sales teams. There's a lot of wayward behavior there, a lot of kind of, because of the way that the sales experience is increasingly made easier, it's never been easier to do it at scale and not care. So before, you'd have to pick up, back when I was thin and I had hair, you'd have to pick up the phone and call someone and actually try and work out, what they want. And it's hard and difficult and it's annoying, but you couldn't really do it at scale. Now you're able to send this stuff out. So you're getting this kind of industrialized sausage factory of time wastage, which is having a real impact on people, and particularly when you're on a high touch consultative sale, that can be really, really time consuming. You're spending time kind of getting to know their business, what they want to do, and they're going, yeah, great. Yeah, all sounds good. Probably flattered by the process. And in the end, they weren't even serious. So yeah, I think with a little bit more honesty, I think it would make everyone's life a lot easier and give us some of our precious time.
I love that take. And do you think there's something like B2B teams spend a lot of time perfecting that rarely moves the needle?
I'll probably get in trouble for saying this. I hate reporting. I hate data. I hate reporting. It's not in my nature. It is important. It's definitely important, and everyone should be doing it. I do think that there is a real danger in being perfect at reporting and it not actually meaning anything. Years ago, before digital marketing, you would put out a TV ad or a press ad or an out of home, and it would get results because it was out there and you'd start seeing the business pick up. Then digital marketing came along and they went, look, I can show you how many people have seen your ad and how many people have clicked on it. And everyone went, crap, this is great. So marketers suddenly had reason in the boardroom, to the head of sales, to the CFO, to the CEO, to be like, look, our marketing is working. And everyone went, this is great. Perfect. Yeah. Then what happened very, very quickly is those stakeholders want to see those numbers more. And they go, well, look, how are you using it to prove return? They go, well, it's not that easy, because when they see this ad, they may have seen another. They go, well, no, you told us the data's all there. So suddenly this reliance on reporting, this reliance on data has become the rod to which they're being beaten by their stakeholders. So there's now having to be a redressing of going, look, we can measure some stuff and we can measure some stuff really well. Some stuff doesn't matter and we can't measure those other bits. It's a difficult conversation to have when the stakeholders don't get the value of marketing and they don't know what the return is, in a culture that is increasingly going, you can prove everything. What is that return? And it's going to take some really mature and clear conversations with these stakeholders to reset what that should be and say, look, this is what we can do. This is what it means. And this is what I'm going to share with you. You're not going to get everything in the same way that you can't improve all of the conversations that you have in any meaningful way. Sometimes some of it is just human interaction and making sure that you're doing it at a scale and with enough kind of strategic nous to say that we're doing it in a targeted and clear and consistent way that you will see those returns over time.
Oh, that was a great answer. And like to wrap up, like looking ahead, what do you think will separate the teams that grow from the ones that just keep, doing more of the same?
Yeah, I mean, it's know your customers better than anyone else in the organization, and like be a real shit about it as well. Be a really aggressive, make it your business to tell everyone how much you know about the customers. The fact that you are speaking to them every week, you're meeting up with them, that you're finding out stuff, you want people to be coming to you, asking your permission to do stuff because you're the person who knows the customers better than anyone. And you should be going in there aggressively saying, have we actually asked our audiences about this? What do we know about what they care about? And I guarantee people will go, oh shit, if we haven't actually asked them, it's a good point. It's a really difficult argument to argue against, saying, have we spoken to our customers? So if you want to be customer obsessed, actually I hate that term. If you just want to be the person who's all about your customers, customer obsessed is such a Norse term, isn't it? What you want to be is just the person who gets it better than anyone because you represent the market as the marketer. It's a really good way to have value in the room and be the person that holds the knowledge that other people know that has value and they want to access that from you. So you're not just the coloring in department, you're not making PowerPoint decks, you're holding something of value that people want because you are the expert.
Ooh, I love that. That was a strong answer.
It's nice, wasn't it? It's quite passionate as well. Hopefully that came through, yeah.
Well, George, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your perspective with us. You're not only incredibly sharp at what you do, but also genuinely fun to listen to. I love the way you think about your work. It feels like a really refreshing and different perspective. And I've had so much fun with you today. So thank you so much for making the time.
Well, look, thank you very much for having me on. Thank you for letting me be myself because, look, that's what's really cool.
That's the
coolest. Thank you very much. It's been a real treat being on here. Thanks for your time.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest, and to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend, and of course, subscribe.